Hey everyone, welcome to Watch Complications. I'm Brian. Thought I'd take some time to share with you some particulars of a project I've been working on. Had a person contact me who'd seen my work on making custom 3D printed holders and asked if I could recase a particular watch. And that's the sort of thing that's up my alley, so I said, sure, why not? Well, the watch in question is a Bulova. It's a 96B85. It's got a lot of complications going on. This is a quartz watch, of course, made in France. It's got moon phase and date and tide. The person, has had the watch for like 20 years. I think the best I can figure out this came out sometime, I think around like 2002 or something. So this is a 20-year-old watch. So here's the case, and you can see it's pretty worn down. I mean, 20 years. This has been a worn and loved watch. Here's the case back. You can see it's also pretty beat up. It's also quite a thin little case. So the person wanted to put this lovely watch, it's got the beautiful dial, hands, those pops of yellow, lume, and just wanted it in a new case, a sharper case, a little bit of a bigger case, and wanted a different bracelet than the one that it originally came on. Here's the bracelet. It is a significant bracelet, particularly the clasp. Again, it's seen a lot of wear. And this is a pretty solid bracelet, but the client wanted something new, so that's gonna go. I'll walk you through the CAD drawing for it a little bit as well, like I usually do with this kind of stuff. The key here was, so we got a new case. This is a 43 millimeter, of course, not intended to be in this case. And there's the movement. Here is the original holder that was in the original case, the Bulova case. You see on the inside there's a ledge, so the movement will sit down right inside of there, and then this will be up against the case back with these notches. So the dial will be on this side, and then the holder just sits down in there nice and snug. Get the hole rotated correctly to 3 o'clock for the stem, and pretty slim profile. Case back screws down, and that's pretty typical. And then here is the holder for the new case. Of course, it's a taller case, bigger diameter, so the holder is larger, and I'll show these side by side so you can see the difference. So quite taller, more depth in here, and stem height can usually be adjusted for, particularly the quartz movement, because that just might mean you need a dial side, sometimes a movement side spacer to raise it up. So the hardest part about this project actually is finding a case that matched the dial of this particular model, because of course, this isn't a standard size you'll find off the shelf, like that would go into Seiko mods and that kind of thing, where it's 28.5, maybe a 35.6 dial diameter. If I remember correctly, this is around 31.5 dial diameter. So very hard to find an exact match. And then once you do find a case, then it's okay, now I can create the custom holder to hold this particular movement. It's a great looking movement, and a lot of cool complications on it, no argument there. But then with the case, you can make the custom holder to fit. And it's also nice having the existing holders from the cases in the original form to sort of build off of conceptually. And so then I start going about the work of creating the custom holder. It's going to secure this old dial and movement in a new case. And so trying to match the design to some extent, right? And get the diameters right for the edge inside where the movement's gonna sit, cutting high enough for the stem. And once all those little quirks are worked out, and if you've watched this channel some, it's like going through a process. Okay, here's copy 1, here's copy 2, here's copy 3, right? You start going through a design process and printing out samples and seeing what you need to adjust here and there. And eventually, I got to a design. You can see here, this was printing out where just because of the interior needing cut away a certain amount, and then the exterior and being careful with how much thickness I wanted to print for the walls, because you don't want to waste a bunch of material. A lot of variables, yeah, now that I think about it, I guess. But yeah, got the sizing all correct. There's little nubs around the side you can kind of see here. And I was like, well, I want to get this locked on the tabs in here right around the stem hole, and just to prevent rotation when you tighten it down, so this slips against the bottom of the case back. And I needed some little notches. You can see I started saying, okay, what size do I need to make them? What height do they need to be in comparison to the base of the movement? And then so I go down that next road. and come up with something that looks like this. You can see here inside of the case, it's got those little nubs around the side, again keeping pressure against it. Those are holding nice and firm around the stem hole, and this just won't move at all. And then so if there is any friction against the inside of the case whenever this gets screwed down, this will stay in place. Since there aren't any clamps or anything like that, you just need the height of the holder exactly correct, so whenever it's getting pressure, if any, against the back of this, anything that can help prevent rotation is good, because the last thing you want is to have the height too tall, lots of pressure against the case back, especially if you're using a case tool, a desktop case tool instead of like a hand case tool. As soon as you start twisting that, there's too much pressure. Eventually that holder is going to come in contact with the stem, and you do not want a stem snapping off inside the movement. One other thing I'll say about it is, because it's going into a new case, often that will mean something like extending the stem. It's a bigger case, right? You see I have the original stem here, and then I put on a stem extender, and then put some medium-ish Loctite, snapped it all down. Of course, I had to do some cutting, trimming on the extender and a little bit on the stem, and then that'll fit in there exactly. And so I'll be putting this together. Since it's a dive case that we're moving it into, the customer really didn't care if it had a rotating bezel or not. The old one did. Had a unidirectional bezel. Still works pretty well, has a nice click to it. But the one case that out of the many that I looked at and the 3 that I tried, that were close in terms of the right diameter for the dial, this one case does have a bezel, but that's okay. So got to pick a bezel. Had some light blue options. You're not going to find something typically that is the exact shade of this sunburst dark blue kind of navy style dial, and so you could do some contrast like this. You could go with a red or a yellow, but the client wanted something blue, and so went with this sort of navy color. And I will throw up a picture of what this looks like all put together so you get a sense of the final product. And there's a little bit of color contrast there between that little bit brighter sunburst off the dial and the bezel, but it still looks really good. And it was just the style that the person chose. Last thing I got to do is pick a new bracelet. I got a variety of those to check out and see which one that the person wants for the final product. Again, tried all sorts of little cases that's like, oh, it's close. Thought about maybe exhibition back. You could see the, nice looking quartz movement. If there's a nice looking quartz movement, this is kind of the style that's okay to look at. It's not a Grand Seiko or anything, but still pretty cool. And so, yeah, that is a project I've been working on recently, and I just thought I'd share it with you all. Thanks for checking out the vid. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe if you want to get future notifications and updates related to all stuff going on here at Watch Complications. Check out my website, watchcomplications.com, and I'll see you around. I am out.